This is alcohol use disorder. I may have just sounded really weird on the end of the other one. So alcohol use disorder occurs over a 12-month period. So at any point in the 12-month period, there's 2 or more criteria evident. It's an alcohol use disorder. And there's 11 total criteria in that list. Also, there's time issues around the specifiers. So there's 3 different ways this is coded. So there's a specifier for early remission and one for sustained remission. There's also a specifier for if it's in a controlled environment. And then you code it based on both the severity and the state of remission. And then, you would put the last criteria as if it's in a controlled environment. So your diagnosis would be alcohol use disorder, either in early remission, in sustained remission, if you add those specifiers. Otherwise, it's just alcohol use disorder if it's going on then. And then you specify the severity. So, for example, for the mild severity, there's a presence of 2 to 3 symptoms. And then if it's mild in early remission or mild in sustained remission. So there's 3 different ways. If there's 2 to 3 symptoms, you would write an alcohol use disorder. So you would put alcohol use disorder mild, or alcohol use disorder mild in early remission, or alcohol use disorder mild in sustained remission. And then after any of those, you would put in a controlled environment. If they're somewhere like, they give a list. Let's see, what's the list? Oh, in a controlled environment applies as a further specifier of remission if the individual is both in remission and in a controlled environment. So you don't need to put a controlled environment if they're in active use, because the idea is like, how would they be actively using in a locked psychiatric facility? That being said, examples are closely supervised and substance-free jails, therapeutic communities, and locked hospital units. And then it's the number of diagnostic criteria endorsed that tells the severity. So I'm going to read through the criteria once, and then I'm going to read an easier version to memorize. So alcohol use disorder is F10, and the different codes would be F10.10, 11, or F10.20, 21, or F10.20, 21, both for the moderate and severe. So that's what's listed in here, something to look at. It seems kind of wrong to me that it's not different from moderate to severe, but that's how it's listed. Okay, so alcohol use disorder diagnostic criteria A is a problematic pattern of alcohol use leading to clinically significant impairment or distress, as manifested by at least 2 of the following occurring within a 12-month period. Here's the 11 criteria. 1, alcohol is often taken in larger amounts or over a longer period than was intended. 2, there is a persistent desire or unsuccessful effort to cut down or control alcohol use. 3, a great deal of time is spent in activities necessary to obtain alcohol, use alcohol, or recover from its effects. 4, craving or a strong desire or urge to use alcohol. 5, recurrent alcohol use resulting in a failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, school, or home. 6, continued alcohol use despite having persistent or recurrent social or interpersonal problems caused or exacerbated by the effects of alcohol. 7, important social, occupational, or recreational activities are given up or reduced because of alcohol use. 8, recurrent alcohol use in situations in which it is physically hazardous. They specify things like driving a car. 9, alcohol use is continued despite knowledge of having a persistent or recurrent physical or psychological problem that is likely to have been caused or exacerbated by alcohol. 10. Tolerance as defined by either of the following. A need for markedly increased amounts of alcohol to achieve intoxication or desired effect. B, a markedly diminished effect with the continued use of the same amount of alcohol. 11. Withdrawal as manifested by either of the following. A, the characteristic withdrawal syndrome for alcohol. Refer to criteria A and B of the criteria set for alcohol withdrawal, so that's a different disorder. Or B, alcohol or a closely related substance such as benzodiazepine is taken to relieve or avoid withdrawal symptoms. You will specify and code based on current severity or remission. And it says, if alcohol intoxication, alcohol withdrawal, or another alcohol-induced mental disorder is also present, do not use the codes below for alcohol use disorder. Instead, the comorbid alcohol use disorder is indicated in the fourth character of the alcohol-induced disorder code. See the coding note for alcohol intoxication, alcohol withdrawal, or a specific alcohol-induced mental disorder. For example, if there is comorbid alcohol intoxication and alcohol use disorder, only the alcohol intoxication code is given, with the fourth character indicating whether the comorbid alcohol use disorder is mild, moderate, or severe. F10 129 for mild alcohol use disorder with alcohol intoxication, or F10 229 for a moderate or severe alcohol use disorder with alcohol intoxication. So you'll specify if the remission is early or sustained in addition to the severity. So first, I'm going to list the severities, the mild, moderate, and severe. So mild is the presence of 2 to 3 symptoms, moderate is 4 to 5, and severe is 6 or more. So you have to have 2 symptoms to qualify. So mild is 2 to 3, moderate is 4 to 5, severe is 6 or more. Then it can either be just like that, or it can be an early remission, which is after the full criteria for alcohol use disorder were previously met. None of the criteria for alcohol use disorder have been met for at least 3 months, but for less than 12 months. That defines early remission. And they do make an exception for criteria A4, which is a craving or strong desire or urge to use alcohol. So, early remission is between 3 and 12 months after a full meeting of the criteria, with only one potential symptom present, which is the cravings. Sustained remission says after the full criteria for alcohol use disorder were previously met, none of the criteria for alcohol use disorder have been met at any time during a period of 12 months or longer, again with the exception around cravings. So it's 1 year symptom-free. So early remission is 3 to 12 months, sustained remission is 1 year, and then the final specifier that would go if it's in remission would be if it's in a controlled environment. So that says it's used if an individual is in an environment where access to alcohol is restricted, with the upshot being that you could have a mild, in early remission alcohol use disorder in a controlled environment, knowing that you've been in rehab for 4 months, you don't have access to alcohol, so you have none of the symptoms except the cravings. And that's going to be different than if you're at home and you've stopped drinking and you're in early remission and you're feeling those cravings, but you're controlling your use of alcohol yourself, even though you could just go down to the liquor store and buy it if you wanted. Okay, so that's alcohol use disorder. So now I'm going to list it in a way that's easy to memorize. Alcohol use disorder occurs over a 12-month period and 2 or more criteria are required. It is a problematic pattern of use that leads to clinically significant impairment or distress. 2 of these 11. 1, alcohol is taken in larger amounts or for longer time than intended. 2, persistent desire or unsuccessful effort to cut down or control use. 3, a lot of time is spent getting, using, or recovering from alcohol. 4, cravings or strong desires to use. 5, recurrent use results in a failure to fulfill major role obligations for work, school, or home. 6, continued use despite having the problems, persistent or recurrent social or interpersonal problems that are caused or made worse by using. 7, important activities are given up or reduced, and those are social, occupational, or recreational. 8, recurrent use in dangerous situations that are physically hazardous. 9, use continues even knowing you have a persistent or recurring physical or psychological problem that's caused or made worse by drinking. 10, you have tolerance. The 2 criteria for tolerance are you need more alcohol to be intoxicated or get your desired effect, or you have a diminished effect using the same amount of alcohol. And 11 is withdrawal. Either A, you have characteristic withdrawal syndrome for alcohol, or B, you use alcohol or another substance to relieve or avoid withdrawal symptoms. Your specifiers are severity. Mild is 2 to 3 symptoms. Moderate's 4 to 5 symptoms. Severe is 6 or more symptoms. And those codes are F10.10 and F10.20 for moderate and severe. If it's in early remission, which is 3 to 12 months symptom-free except criteria 4 for cravings, you would code it as F10.11, mild and early remission, or F10.21, moderate and early remission, or severe and early remission. If you're in sustained remission, you are 1 year symptom-free with the exception of criteria 4 cravings, and those would be coded the same way. The number is the same, but it would be moderate in sustained remission, or severe in sustained remission, or mild in sustained remission. And finally, you add the specifier in a controlled environment. So for my own use, I'm going to hit that one more time with really short explanations. I don't know if this would meet what we need on the test, but I think it's going to help me get it remembered. So the diagnostic criteria for alcohol use is 2 out of 11 criteria within 12 months. Clinically significant impairment or distress. 1, larger amounts or longer than intended. 2, persistent desire or unsuccessful effort to cut down or control. 3, a lot of time is spent getting, using, or recovering from alcohol. 4, craving, urge, desire to use. 5, use means you fail to fulfill your obligations, work, school, or home. 6, you continue using even with social or interpersonal problems that are caused by it. 7, you give up activities because of alcohol. 8, you use where it's physically hazardous to use. 9, you use knowing you've got a medical, physical, psychological problem that's caused by it. 10, issues with tolerance. There's 2 of them. And 11, issues with withdrawal, and there's 2 of them. The 2 for tolerance is you need more to get drunk, or you get less drunk using the same amount. And the two criteria for withdrawal are characteristic withdrawal syndrome for alcohol, or you use alcohol or another drug to not be hungover or to avoid withdrawal symptoms. Specifiers: early remission, 3 to 12 months, symptom-free with the exception of cravings. Sustained remission, 1 year symptom-free with the exception of cravings. You can specify if it's in a controlled environment, and you code for mild, moderate, severe. Mild is 2 to 3 symptoms, moderate's 4 to 5, severe is 6 or more.